Hello, my unraveled friends. Guess what happened? I went and got myself the flu. Not a fun way to start your long Labor Day weekend. Yeah. But I guess, these are the things that happen when you work in healthcare. We've been seeing a lot of sick people over the last couple of weeks. I guess it was just a matter of time. We try to be careful, but here we are. I promised this deep dive today, and so that's what we're going to do. If I'm a little lower energy than usual, just bear with me. We're going to get through it. I think Nikki's story is really important. I feel like we need to talk about it, especially now that the arrest has been made. So thank you so much for joining me. I mentioned last night, this case has been kind of haunting me ever since I first heard about it. It's the disappearance and the now presumed murder of Nikki Cheng, Saelee-McCain. It's one of those stories that kind of just crawls under your skin. She was a 39-year-old mother of four. She vanished without a trace. And then 15 months later, her husband, Tyler McCain, has been arrested for her murder. But again, here's the thing. They still have not found Nikki's body. This is a no body homicide. So grab your coffee, your snacks, get comfy, and let's just kind of walk through this whole tragic case together. Let's unravel. So Nikki's story just has so much of everything. It starts with domestic violence. It has, her mysterious disappearance. There's her vehicle found abandoned in a remote gorge in Northern California. There is a husband who stayed silent for almost a year before just randomly showing up at this press conference saying, like, we miss you. There's just a lot to unpack here. So this all happened in Redding, California, which is in Shasta County up in Northern California. It's a beautiful area, mountains, lakes. But like everywhere else, it has its share of darkness as well. Who was Nikki? Let's talk about her because she is the most important part of this entire story. Nikki, like I say, in all of the cases that I cover, she's not just another missing person statistic, right? She was just, by all accounts, everything that I read and researched about Nikki, she was this just and gosh, she was beautiful, so beautiful, vibrant, fun-loving. She had this incredible bond with her family and her three sisters, May, Kay, and Chloe. Her sisters described her in interviews as goofy and silly. She was the kind of person who could just find humor in absolutely anything. Kay said that she had a very big heart, and Chloe called her the most feisty and funny of all of the sisters. She was brave and she was daring, and she was the person everyone counted on when someone needed something to be done. And her sisters also said that she was the most forgiving person and that she always found the good in everybody, in absolutely everyone. They said that she could look at a criminal and say, yeah, but look at his eyes. Look how sad he looks, like he's been through some stuff. Like she just always wore this empathy as her shell. It was just who she was. And that, unfortunately, when you think about the fact that her husband is now being arrested and that there is a history of domestic violence there, I mean, that really makes a lot of sense, that she was forgiving and that she just continually tried to see the good in this person that was hurting her. I don't know. It's just something so incredibly heartbreaking about that. They said if you need someone to go do something for you, she's your person. And then Nikki, she disappeared without a trace. Nikki's husband's name is Tyler Scott McCain, this guy. And they live together in Anderson, California, which is this small city kind of just south of Redding. But their relationship, as it turns out, was quite troubled. And this is where the story here really begins to take shape. Okay, so let's rewind because the real story here starts in December of 2023. This is the background that we need. So you see, Mr. Tyler over here had a history, it turns out, of domestic violence. with Nikki, going back to at least 2020. But in December of 2023, all of these things really reached a very horrifying new level. Nikki went to a local hospital and she had told a deputy at that time that Tyler had physically assaulted her for about 3 hours just days prior. She reported being restrained and brutally beaten, and she stated at that time that she was in fear for her life. Based on Nikki's harrowing account that day and the very severe visible injuries that she presented with, Tyler was charged with multiple felonies at that time related to domestic violence. These charges included corporal injury to a spouse, criminal threats, and assault with force likely to cause great bodily injury. The case was scheduled for trial in the near future, and Nikki was expected to testify against her husband, Tyler. The legal system was in motion, and it appeared that Tyler would finally have to face the consequences of his alleged actions. However, the prosecution's reliance on Nikki as the key witness created a vulnerability in this case, and it would later prove to be what I consider to be the central motive for the crime that followed. This incident was not just another episode of violence. It was the inciting event that set the stage for Nikki's disappearance. It really revealed a profound and tragic conflict between the pursuit of justice and the escalating danger that victims can face. The fact that the murder charge later would go on to include the, quote, special circumstance of intent to prevent testimony, unquote, makes it very clear that the domestic violence case was the direct impetus for the subsequent tragic events. Tyler pleaded not guilty, and a hearing was scheduled for June 3rd of 2024. Remember that date because it's going to become really important. You know how when we're talking about true crime, we're talking about these cases, there's often just this detail that makes your stomach drop. It makes you just, ugh. When this one broke, this was the detail for me. Nikki disappeared just weeks before she was set to testify against her husband in court. And I remember hearing about it and thinking it's a little strange, but of course we never want to jump to any conclusions. We never want to, accuse people of things that they may not have done. But if that didn't set off alarm bells for me immediately, I don't know what else did. 3 domestic violence charges against Tyler were dismissed on July 2024. So as you can imagine, people in the community and Nikki's family, as anyone would be, they were outraged. District attorney, her name is Stephanie Bridget, she had to come out and explain that legally they had no choice, right? In our justice system, this is a foundation of our justice system, the accused has the right to confront witnesses against them. If there was no Nikki, there was no case. The district attorney did emphasize, though, that they could and would refile these charges if and when Nikki was found, or if they got enough evidence to use her statements without her being present. But at that point, I think everyone was kind of starting to fear the worst about what may have happened to Nikki. So it would appear that the last time that anyone heard from Nikki was on the evening of May 17th, 2024. She had texted her sisters that evening saying that she was at the hospital visiting one of Tyler's family members. There was apparently a lot of car shuffling going on throughout this day, people driving back and forth from the hospital, dropping off vehicles here and there, that kind of thing, right? And so later that night, Nikki had texted her sister Chloe that she was on her way to drop off her mother-in-law's vehicle at their house in Redding Rancheria, which is a Native American reservation in Shasta County. She mentioned that one of Tyler's friends would be following her back to her home afterwards. Chloe stated that she tried texting Nikki later that night and into the early morning hours of the next day, May 18th, but that she had gotten no response. The sisters said it wasn't unusual to go a couple of days without texting each other. So they weren't immediately worried or too concerned. But by May 21st, when none of them had heard from Nikki and Tyler had also started claiming that he hadn't seen her, I think it was at that time they knew something was wrong. Chloe filed a missing persons report at that point with the Reading Police Department. So 2 days later, on May 24th, the case got transferred to the Shasta County Sheriff's Office because Nikki was last seen in their jurisdiction. Detectives immediately started looking for both Nikki and her Chevy Avalanche, which was also missing. On May 25th, they served a search warrant at Nikki and Tyler's home. They seized some evidence. They did not find Nikki. The same day, and that's where things get really ominous, someone found Nikki's Chevy Avalanche abandoned off of Highway 36 near Begum Gorge Bridge. If you're not familiar with that area, because I am not, it's a really remote spot that's like an hour west of Reading in some pretty rugged terrain. When investigators processed the vehicle, they found what they described as, quote, physical evidence indicating foul play, unquote. They searched the area with rescue teams, still no sign of Nikki. I mean, can you imagine finding an abandoned vehicle in a remote gorge with evidence of foul play inside, and the owner of that vehicle is nowhere to be found? At this point, I think everyone involved was really starting to fear the absolute worst. June 3rd came and went. That was the date that Nikki was set to be in court to testify against her husband, Saelee-McCain, for the domestic violence case against him. Her absence from court was another huge red flag. As I mentioned earlier, on July 5th, those domestic violence charges against Tyler were dismissed because Nikki wasn't there to testify. And again, people in the community, her family, they're furious. They're feeling like Tyler at this point is benefiting from Nikki's disappearance, but the community did not just get angry, they got active. And we love this. Reading Rancheria put up a huge billboard along I-5 with Nikki's information. A combined reward of $30,000 was offered for information leading to finding Nikki. $10,000 each from Shasta County Secret Witness, Reading Rancheria, and Kingsman Philanthropic Corps. The NorCal Alliance for the Missing created a Facebook page called Help Find Nikki Cheng Saelee-McCain. And that very quickly grew to over 3,000 followers. There were justice rallies, community searches, and people really came together for Nikki. On July 3rd, 2024, Dateline NBC features Nikki's story in their Missing in America series, which brought national attention at this point to this case. But through all of this, one person was noticeably absent from all of the search efforts, from all of the public appeals, and that was Saelee-McCain. He stayed completely silent about his wife's disappearance. He wasn't participating in any of the community efforts to find her, and that silence would continue for almost a year. Now we fast forward to March 10th, 2025. Almost 10 months after Nikki vanished, and out of nowhere, Saelee-McCain suddenly appears at this press conference alongside Nikki's family. Take a look.
Good morning. My name is Chris Edwards, the investigations captain of the Sheriff's Office. And we're here this morning regarding the Nikki Saelee-McCain case. At this point, we were asked by the media or the family who wanted to address the media regarding her investigation. And at this point, let's let the media know that we're not planning on taking any questions after regarding this case, and the families relate the same, so please respect that. So at this point, the Sheriff's Office is continuing to investigate this. We have since last May. We're nearing a year. At this point, we're about 10 months and still actively working the case. So at this point of the conference, we'll let the family address the media as requested.
You can talk with your judge. So we just have we'll have each family member say that again.
Well, I'm John McCain. I'm the husband of Nikki McCain. First of all, I would like to thank the Sheriff's Office, FBI, for getting involved any efforts that that might help bring my wife home, safely. We miss you. I don't really know what to say. I haven't been in the public eyes, and I haven't done very well with it. I apologize to everyone, especially my children, my wife's family, mine as well. I'm just here in support, so anything that I can do, I want to do that. So, okay, I'll take care.
Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can go stand back up there if you want, or
I think it's fine if you leave it there. I don't need to get
podium mic.
Listen.
Yeah. To the correct place.
Hello, my name is Kay Ford.
And I'm Chloe Saelee. We just want to start off by saying thank you for being here today to hear about our missing sister, Nikki Cheng Saelee-McCain, who has been missing for 296 days.
We have spent each of those days in agony, longing for her safe return to her family and her children. She vanished on May 18th, 2024, and we urgently need your help to find her. We are pleading with anyone with information to come forward. This is a call to action to bring our sister home.
Nikki is approximately 5 feet tall and she weighs about 90 to 95 pounds. She has dark brown reddish colored hair, and at the time of her disappearance, she was 39 years old. She was allegedly last seen May 18th, 2024.
She was reportedly picked up at her mother-in-law, Jeanette Hayward McCain's house at the Redding Rancheria in Redding, California. She may have been dropped off at her home on Olinda Road in Happy Valley. Her truck that Tyler recently purchased for her was found abandoned on Highway 36 near Begum Road. She hasn't been seen or heard from since.
We want to express our deepest gratitude to everyone who has helped in the search for my sister. To the volunteers, law enforcement, the media, private investigators, and the individuals who have dedicated their time and resources to searching for her, and to every single person who has shared her story, kept an eye out, and offered support, thank you. Your kindness and determination mean the world to our family during this incredibly difficult time.
So, hold on, let me fix myself here. I mean, immediately, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Sorry for the weeble wobbles. Kind of, I'm because I'm feeling kind of crappy. I'm just like hanging out in bed. I'm hanging out in bed in my look at my Barbie hoodie. Isn't she cute? She's cute. I know there's more Barbie girls out there watching. By the way, if you've made it this far into the video, how are you guys? How is everyone? What are we doing on this Labor Day weekend? How are we marking the end of our summer? I tell you what, I'm on the East Coast and this summer was incredibly hot, humid, horrible. Couldn't even do a whole lot because the heat was so crazy. And I never thought I'd say this because I am a summer girly through and through, but I'm a little bit ready for the start of fall. But anyway, okay, that was my little ADD insert there. Back to it. This is weird, right? It's not just me. These two queens that get on, on this press conference after Nikki's siblings, her sisters. These sound like two people who are wanting to get information out there so that their sister can be found, right? They knew why they were there. They executed. Tyler, of course, who hadn't been heard from in 10 months, participated in no efforts to find his missing wife. And then that was your plea again. I know. People react differently, people cope differently. And so I don't want to say that I base judgment on that press conference alone. But was I a little judgy there when this happened in March? I watched this press conference as it was happening, and yeah, I was a little judgy. I was. I didn't like it. I didn't like the vibe. And again, the fact that Nikki went missing a couple of weeks before she was due to testify against this man in court, I already kind of had that little suspicion, just kind of tingling on my shoulder in the back of my mind. And then when I saw this, I was just completely unimpressed with his public plea. This is your missing wife. But anyway, that was that. Moving on. So in that press conference, excuse me, Captain Chris Edwards from the sheriff's office, he was reassuring everyone that they were doing absolutely everything that they possibly could to locate Nikki, and they were encouraging anyone with any information to come forward. And it seemed like maybe this press conference was meant to generate new leads in the case. But 4 days later, after this press conference occurred, everything changed. On March 14th, 2025, the Shasta County Sheriff's Office dropped a bombshell. They were now officially investigating Nikki's disappearance as a homicide. Their press release stated this, quote, based on evidence gathered, information learned from interviews, and the fact that none of Nikki's family members had heard from Nikki since May 18th, 2024, detectives have determined Nikki is a victim of homicide, unquote. That same day, they executed another search warrant at Nikki and Tyler's home, and this time with the help of Homeland Security and the FBI. They mentioned they had identified persons of interest, but they weren't naming any names just yet. I wonder who it could be. They also put out a very specific request asking for help identifying a, quote, driver of a red in color truck who may have picked up a male adult, unquote, where Nikki's vehicle was found, near where Nikki's vehicle was found sometime between May 18th and May 25th. This request was huge. It suggested to the public that investigators believe that someone might have helped transport a person away from the area where Nikki's vehicle was abandoned. So the timing of this announcement, just days after Tyler's sudden public appearance, makes you wonder if, did he know this was coming? Was he trying to get ahead of it by suddenly, out of nowhere, playing the concerned husband? And not playing it very well, might I add, in my opinion. Either way, the investigation was now officially a homicide case, even without finding Nikki's body. And that meant investigators, they had to have enough evidence to believe that she was no longer with us, and that her death was the result of a crime. 5 months later, so now we're going just to a little over a week ago, on August 20th, 2025, came the moment that so many had been waiting for. Tyler Scott McCain was arrested for the murder of his wife, Nikki Cheng Saelee-McCain. Amen. Hallelujah. If he did it, allegedly. Sheriff Michael Johnson announced at a press conference last week. Detectives recently obtained a murder arrest warrant for Tyler McCain, and today at about 10:15 a.m., Tyler McCain was arrested. He was ultimately booked in the Shasta County Jail with no bail for the murder of Nikki. He emphasized at this press conference how complex and thorough this investigation had been. Quote, these cases are layered, meticulous, require months of investigation, hundreds and hundreds of personnel hours, not just from investigators, but from law enforcement, boots on the ground, from support services, from forensic evidence, all across the board. It is very labor intensive, and it is crucial that all evidence is collected, preserved, and processed accordingly to make the case, unquote. This was not, obviously, as we know, this was not just the sheriff's office working alone to find Nikki or to bring justice for Nikki. They had help from the district attorney's office. They had help from Reading Police. They had help from Homeland Security. They had help from the FBI. They had help from the California Highway Patrol, California Department of Justice. At the press conference, Nikki's sisters, 100% absolutely, we knew it. Nikki's strongest advocates from day one, Chloe and Kay, they were there, and they spoke briefly. Kay said something that really stuck with me. She said, quote, "We are still fighting for justice to be fully served, for my sister's memory to be honored, and for the healing of our family and our community. Nothing can erase the pain of losing her, but knowing that the person responsible is being held accountable allows us to move forward with hope from the bottom of our hearts." We're all holding our breath, crossing our fingers, and praying that Nikki gets the justice that she deserves and that we get answers. And I think everybody out there watching this wants the same thing that we all want, which is Nikki brought home. We want her brought home. 2 days later, after this press conference, on August 22nd, 2025, so just a week ago, Tyler pleaded not guilty at his arraignment. He is currently being held without bail. So here's where we are now. Tyler McCain is charged. He is charged with murdering his wife. But again, and I'll keep saying it, Nikki's body still has not been found. Of course, this makes it what's called a no-body homicide. These cases used to be really rare, but they've actually become more common in recent years, according to an expert quoted in local media. Quote, "In the last 20 years, there have been close to 700 no-body homicide cases nationwide, with a conviction rate between 80 and 90% range. What's changed? What's changed is technology. Prosecutors can now build cases like these on circumstantial evidence like video footage, cell phone data, forensic evidence that was never available to them in the past. For Shasta County, however, this appears to mark their first no-body homicide case. The evidence reportedly includes bloodstains found in Nikki's truck, cell phone data, the ever so damning digital evidence, and some witness testimony as well. One expert explains why it took so long to make an arrest, because I know that's always the question. 15 months? Are you kidding? Like, what was going on? Well, quote, "When there is a no-body homicide case, it's challenging for authorities to get that probable cause affidavit and turn it into an arrest warrant. They definitely spent their time dotting their I's and crossing their T's to make sure that the arrest warrant would be approved and the charges would stick in court," unquote. We have to do this. I know that when we want justice, we want it right now. We want it right now, especially when we have ideas and speculations as to the path that these cases are ultimately going. But it's so important. It's so important that when these cases go to court, everybody's ducks are in a row. Everything has to be solid. It has to be irrefutable, and it has to be able to be presented to a jury in a way that leaves no room for reasonable doubt, so that the person responsible for these crimes is held accountable at the highest level, our court, our justice system. Despite the arrest, finding Nikki's remains is still a priority. It's still a priority. At the press conference, Sheriff Johnson made a very direct appeal. He said, quote, "If you're watching and you have any information and you know where she is, please come forward. Please bring that information forward now that this case is at the point that it is, and provide some relief for Nikki's family and help end their agonizing pain and search, and let them lay her to rest. I cannot talk about this case without addressing the elephant in the room, the connection between domestic violence and Nikki's disappearance. The timing here, in my opinion, and I'm sure in the prosecution's opinion, is just too perfect to be coincidental. Nikki vanishes just weeks before she is supposed to testify against her husband in a court of law in a domestic violence hearing. Come on, here's the problem. This fits a pattern that law enforcement and domestic violence advocates and domestic violence victims know all too well. When victims try to leave or speak up abusive relationships or start to seek legal protection, that is far too often when the violence escalates to its most dangerous level. Fatal. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, when a woman is murdered, it's most often by an intimate partner. And about 1 in 3 women who are murdered are killed by someone that they were currently or previously in a relationship with. The dismissal of those original domestic violence charges against Tyler because Nikki wasn't there to testify is another troubling aspect of this case to a lot of people. While legally necessary, we've touched on that. While legally necessary, it meant that initially he faced no consequences for whatever happened to Nikki at his hands back in December of 2023. For victims of domestic violence, Nikki's case is a very sobering reminder of the potential dangers of seeking help. Advocates emphasize that this should not discourage victims from coming forward. Rather, it highlights the very systemic, it is so deeply rooted, systemic need for better protection for those who do come forward. This is a problem. I get a little emotional every time I deliver this message, but if any of you that are watching or listening, or anyone that you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 1-800-799-7233 or thehotline.org. So even with Saelee-McCain behind bars, there is still a crucial piece to this puzzle missing. For the 100th time, we still can't find Nikki. This is a call to action. Nikki herself is still missing. Finding her remains would not only give her family the closure that they need and that they deserve, but it could also strengthen the prosecution's case against her husband, Saelee-McCain. The search for Nikki has been so extensive. They've combed the areas around the Beacom Gorge multiple times where her avalanche was found, and they've searched in multiple other locations connected to the case. That $30,000 reward for information leading to finding Nikki is still available. Sheriff Johnson made it very clear at the press conference announcing McCain's arrest that finding her remains is still a top priority. We all want Nikki found. For Nikki's sisters, finding her body would allow them to properly lay her to rest and begin their healing. The arrest does obviously provide some measure of justice, but imagine not being able to say a proper goodbye to your loved one. That just leaves this unimaginably painful void. If anybody watching, has any information about where Nikki might be, please contact the Shasta County Sheriff's Office Major Crimes Unit at, and I'll put it here, mcu@shastacounty.gov, or call the number 530-245-6135. Final thoughts. So that's where things stand right now with the Nikki Cheng Saelee-McCain case. From her disappearance in May 2024 to the arrest of her husband in August 2025, it has been a long painful journey for her family and for that entire community. For me, what makes this case so haunting is thinking, just thinking about Nikki herself, Nikki as a human being, Nikki as a person, as a mother, as a woman, and not just Tyler McCain's victim. We're not doing that. Again, her sisters just talk about her as being silly and goofy and outgoing and having this huge, forgiving, empathetic heart. She was brave and she was the one that everybody counted on when they needed something. I think about her 4 children. They've lost their mother. I think about her sisters, shared this very obvious special bond with her. I think about all of the people who put in all of these hours searching for her. I think about the community that put up all of these that put up this billboard and that organized all of these rallies. Everyone just hoping to bring her home. As the legal case against Tyler McCain moves forward, I hope 2 things happen. 1, I hope justice is served for Nikki, first and foremost, and that 2, somehow, some way, Nikki is found and brought home to her family. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just about solving a case or getting a conviction. It's about honoring this woman who was loved and who mattered and who is really missed by the people who knew her. This case is about remembering Nikki. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I know it's heavy stuff, but I just think it's so important to talk about these cases. I think it's so important to keep these victims' stories alive. And I think it's really important to raise awareness about domestic violence. It's so important. And to remind ourselves that behind all the Tyler McCain headlines, fuck Tyler McCain. That is not what this case is about. Do we want to see him held accountable for what he has allegedly done? Absolutely. This is not the Tyler McCain case. This is the Nikki Cheng, Saelee-McCain case. This is about her. This is about a real person, a mother, a woman, a sister, a friend, a daughter with a life, a family, and a story that deserves to be told. So thank you guys for being here with me. I hope that you're having an amazing Saturday. I hope that you have a great 3-day weekend if you get one. And again, I just want to end this reiterating one very important thing. If you or someone that you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out for help. I promise you, there is always someone there to listen and to help you. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, again, is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 1-800-799-7233 or thehotline.org. Until I see you guys again, please stay safe, keep asking questions, and keep unraveling. Love you.